So today I'm going to turn an elevated or a footed bowl. So I'm going to try to do something a little bit fancy with the feet. They're going to be 4 feet that I'm going to carve into the bottom of it. So I start all my bowls with a 2 1/8 inch hole made with a Forstner bit that will fit the 50mm jaws that most chucks come with. So all I'm going to do is pop it into my chuck and expand my jaws out into it. Chucks have 2 holes. It's to make it easier to get the jaws nice and tight. You'll notice that every time you go to the other hole, you'll be able to tighten it a little bit more. So do that a couple times and then it'll be nice and tight. So I'm going to bring my tailstock in for now while I rough shape this out. So for this bowl, I'm going to be using this 5/8 bowl gouge that Fine By Tool had sent to me to try out. It's made out of M2 high-speed steel, and it's been cryogenically treated to increase the strength. So we're going to see how this tool does. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is a couple passes on the outside to round the blank out. So this is a Sapele blank. It's roughly 6 inches in diameter and 4 inches thick. So this side is going to be the top of the bowl and this side is going to be the foot of the bowl. Alright, so I have the outside roughly shaped. I want to cut a recess in the foot right now so that I can flip it over and hollow out the inside of the bowl, and then I'll play around with shrinking the foot down and carving the feet for it. Alright, so I have a pair of calipers set to the size of my jaws. So that's the size that I want to make my recess. Alright, so that's deep enough for it. I'm going to switch off of the bowl gouge just for a second so that I can use a dovetail tool to cut the dovetail for my jaws. Alright, so now all we have to do is loosen up the jaws, flip it over, and expand the jaws back out into that recess. These jaws that I'm using have a dovetail on them, so as long as you cut a good dovetail that matches the jaws, there shouldn't be any issues with it coming off. Alright, so now that it's all flipped over, all I have to do right now is get the bowl itself hollowed out, and then I can work on the foot. So for right now, I'm using a push cut, and I'm riding the bevel. So there's the bevel of the tool. Now I start to cut. So as for the flute of the gouge, I'm starting at maybe the 1 o'clock. And to keep contact with the bevel and the wood, as I get deeper, I'm turning the flute of the gouge over until I'm closer to 3 o'clock. Alright, so that's it for the inside. Just gonna do a little sanding off camera, and then we'll be able to work on the foot and get that all carved up. So I sanded the inside of the bowl and the outside around the rim all the way up to 400 grit. My next thing I want to do is I want to work on developing the foot for the bowl. So I'm just going to use this bowl gouge and to start shaping out the foot. Alright, so that's about as far as I can get in with this 5/8 bowl gouge. So I'm going to switch up to a smaller bowl gouge. So I'm going to switch to a 1/4 inch bowl gouge just to get in a little bit and clean that up. And I also want to sweep. So I want to have the points of the feet kind of turn back up when they're sitting on the table. So the last thing I need to do before I sand this down is I just want to taper my wings for the bottoms of the feet. Alright, so that's it for shaping the outside. So I need to sand this all down, which I'll just do off camera. And then we will just refine the bottom of the bowl. The last thing I have to do on the lathe is just to reverse mount this so that I can hollow the bottom of the foot out a little bit so that I'll be able to carve the 4 feet into it. So this is a vacuum chuck that's connected to a vacuum pump. So I'm just going to lightly hold it on with my tailstock for now. Then I'm going to turn the pump on and turn off the vent. Now it's nice and tight. I'm going to start out by using the tailstock as a little bit of extra support to make sure that it stays on. And I'm going to start off with that 5/8 inch bowl gouge from Fine Bipe tool. Alright, so that's all cleaned out. I'm just going to back the tailstock away now and rely on the vacuum pump just to clean up that very last little bit in the center. So without the tailstock, you want to take kind of light cuts. So you don't want to get a catch because that could potentially pull the bowl off of the vacuum chuck. If you don't have a vacuum chuck, you can always use a jam chuck to do this. Okay, so that's it for the turning. I just got to do a little bit of sanding on it, and then it'll be all ready to start carving out the 4 feet. So I have everything marked out on the bottom of the foot. So I just need to cut out all the spots that I have the pencil marks on. I'm going to be using our rotary tool and a couple different bits for that.
Alright, so now that I have the shape of the feet all refined, I just have to sand through all my grits to get it nice and smooth, and then it'll be ready for some finish. So now that everything is all sanded down, all I have left to do is to apply some finish. So because this is going to be more of a decorative piece and it's not really going to be used other than sitting on a shelf, I'm just going to apply a little bit of linseed oil to the entire bowl. So what I'm doing is I'm just applying a liberal coat of the oil. I'm going to let it soak in for a few minutes and then come back and wipe it down. I'll do this a couple times and it will give it a nice luster. Not a super glossy finish, but it'll make the chatoyance of just the peely show.
Now I'm just using a dry part of the rag just to give it a quick wipe down to get the excess off of it. So there you go, that's it. The oil darkens the wood, gives us a nice chatoyance factor to it, and really brings the grain out.